Right, welcome back. So we got to a point where we're able to display the correct dates for a given month, but our controls such as the drop down and the forward backward button don't work. So in this lesson we're going to make the Datepicker more interactive by taking care of the drop down and the forward backward button as well. Now let's just remove these console logs as we don't need them. We are console logging the month array somewhere. It says Datepicker 100 line 140, right? So let's just comment that out. And yeah, so we need a number of event listeners on the, let's start with the drop down. So we don't need to type it out, we've got a query selected for it. Here we go, this one, that's for the year. We can grab the month as well at the same time. And we're going to go up, and probably as a second method we're going to create a setup event listeners method. It's not going to receive any parameters. We're just going to paste it in here for now, and we're going to make sure we're going to call it in the add HTML after all the year and month range has been rendered. We don't necessarily need to do that, but I think this order will just work fine. Set up event listeners, and we're calling the method here. Now let's just do the year first. So we got the query selector, we're selecting the year, and obviously it's not the value we need, rather we want to add an event listener, and the event we want to listen on a normal select input field is the change of the value, of course. And we're going to pass a callback function here that receives the event property by default. And if we just go ahead and console log the event target, right? So the event target is the select HTML element as well. And as you know, earlier here, where we create the option for the year, where do we create the option for the year? We create it here. By the way, we don't need to save this here. Just realized we're not using this because we're rendering it straight to the DOM. Same here. We do not need to save it as we're rendering it straight to the DOM. So when we do that in our utility functions, we define the value here. So all we're doing now is we just want to access that value in our event listener callback, and we're going to set it, and we're going to set the this current year and month equals to. Now let's have a little think about what we need to do. So the event target value will return 2018, 19, 20, 21. So I can also show it to you if we want to console log that out. So event target value, right? So if we go on 2018, so you get 2018 there. So what we need to do then is basically make the current year and month equal to event target value plus the months are unchanged. So we can just again use the current year and month, and just need to think about what part of this string we need. So just to help us count the exact characters, let's just go back here, and remember it's the default year and month that has the same format, the same length as the current year and month. So we got the year, so we have character 0, 1, 2, 3. So we need to start at the 4 and take 3 characters. So we need to start at 4 and take 3 characters, right? And just to be sure, let's console log this out as well, just to make sure we're not introducing any bugs, because then it's just going to be harder to fix things later as we add more complexity and more functionalities. All right, let's check it out. Yep, that's exactly the format we need. That's exactly what we need. So what do we do with that once we got the current year and month? Let's remind ourselves, how does our flowchart look like? Just remember that right now we are taking care of this action leg. So what we need to do is we set the new current year and month, and we just need to re-render everything. So what we did when we got the just the Datepicker setup and we received the values upon creating the Datepicker, we kind of need to run through the same logic, meaning we need to re-render the year, because we need to figure out what months are available in that particular year. So all we need to do is just call our already defined method, set year and month range, and that's it. So just as a reference, let's use an existing and proven to work calendar, and let's clear this so we can see if there are any errors. Let's put it on top. Right, so we're in it's 2021 March, our default year. Right, so let's just change it to 2020 March, so we have to watch this here. Okay. So something is funny here, and what's happening is that obviously when you re-render the months, you want to make sure that the calendar body is empty, the select HTML elements are empty. So as a first step of before we begin populating and rendering, we just need to make sure that all these elements are empty. And the way we do this, let's do it for the drop down. So we are again, we're getting these two elements, the drop down for the year and drop down for the month. And there's a property on every HTML element. It's called the inner HTML, which basically everything that is between the elements opening and closing tag. So all we need to do is just set it to an empty string. Same for the month. I can just grab this from here and it's going to be easier, right? And we have to do the same for the calendar body, which we can do, let's say here in the render days. It just makes sense to do it here. And the relevant div is not the row, it's actually the body. The body is the relevant div because we want to get rid of the rows as well, so we want an empty body with nothing inside it, right? So this should fix our issue. So this is the calendar we have to watch. So we're changing it to 2020 and the March has to begin on a Sunday, right? It's quite good. Let's check out 19. How does 2019 look like? March begins on a Friday. Yeah, it's all looking good. So that takes care of the years. Now let's kind of do the same for the month. So we don't need this, it's just easier to duplicate the year selector. Right, just make sure that we change these very quickly before we forget. And right, so what values do we get? Remember, we're passing the values we're passing in here is a 2-digit number. It's a string actually, but it's actually a number, so it's 0 and 1, 1 and 2, things like that. It's a data type string, but basically it's a number. And what we need to do is, like, current year and month. When we're changing the month, the year doesn't change, so the year is the same. And then we're adding the event target value, but we need to get rid of the months. So we need to take, again, if we're looking at do we have any console log here remaining? No, we don't have any console logs. So then let's just go back to the app.js and just count it out. So we need to start 0, and we need to go 1 character, 2 character, 3 character, 4 character, 5 character, so that we include the dash as well. So current year and month, substring 0,5 event target value, and then we re-render our calendar. Right, have I changed everything correctly? I think I did. Let's just have a console log here for the month picker as well, just to see that we're doing everything correctly. Right, so let's just go ahead, and we're in March. Then let's change this to February. Remember, this is our perfect month from last lecture, right? If we go 2000, what do we have here? 2019 January, so it starts with a Tuesday, ends with a Thursday. 2019 January starts with a Tuesday, ends with a Thursday. Right, this looks perfect. Now, what happens if we go out of range? So remember, we are starting November 2018 and ending March. So if I were to go to 2018 January, we've got a problem. We're unable to highlight the month because it's out of range, and we actually don't want to be able to go to January if we don't want to offer January as, in 2018 as an available month. So we need to build in some controls, some fallbacks logic to fall back onto a default date if we're trying and selecting a date that's actually not available. And what we can do here is we can leave the event listeners behind for 1 second. And down here, where we render the months, we need to come up with the logic. And it will be a very simple check. We just need to check if the current year and month is before the start date or after the end date. And in that case, we're going to just select the default value. So a conditional statement if this start date, and actually we're going to, because the start date does have days, and we don't want to get to a point where, let's say the calendar starts on the 30th of November and our current year and month will default to the 1st, or if we're not using moment object, then it will simply have no values. And because of that, November will not be included, because November-30th is behind a simple November month, and it won't be included. So what we need to do is we need to just get rid of those days at the end. Sub string, and I think we need 0 to 7. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So sorry, 0, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters. Yeah. So 0 to 7. If the start date is bigger than this current year and month, then do something else. If very similar, but with the end date, just the opposite relation. So if the end date is smaller, than the current year and month, then do something. Let's just do a few tests. Console.log I am after, and here we're going to console log I am before. Right, let's see how this works. So let's just select something that's available. Nothing happens. But if I were to go to 2018 February, which we know it's not available because it starts with November, it's going to say I am before. And it does say it quite a lot of times. Oh my god, yeah. Oh my god. Alright. Huge stupidity on my part. So we're iterating over the months, and what happens here is on every iteration we're selecting the value. That just doesn't make sense. So we need to do, so not just this logic that I'm just setting up, but also selecting the value should be outside the while loop. I haven't even realized it was inside. That's why I was so surprised. Let me just put it here. Also does some looks like the indentation is the indentation okay? Yeah, the indentation is okay now. So it has to be outside the while loop, because we have to determine the value once we got all the months in place, not on the fly, right? So let's just check if everything's still working. We haven't broken anything. So let's just go 2019 March and see if we get our date correct. Yes, let's go to the 20 May. See if it looks good. 2020 May. Yes, looks correct. So this seems to be working fine. Now let's go to a date that's not available. I am before. And let's just refresh. And we're gonna go something that's also not available. Let's go 20 October and 2021. I am after. So yeah, the conditional logic works. And also let me check if 2018 November works. Yes. See if it works. 2018 November works, because we shouldn't get any. Yeah, we don't get any, so that's correct. It's good that we added that substring there. Right, so what happens when we're before? When we're before, we just want to say this current year month equals to, well, let's make it the start date, right? And in that case, we want to show the end date if we're after. I mean, it makes sense if somebody wants to go too far in the future, just give them the latest date available. If somebody wants to go very early, just give them the earliest date available. So that makes sense. Just make sure that you don't forget to swap the values here. And actually this one should be where we select the values, should be below that, because we're defaulting. If we have to default, we're defaulting, and then we're selecting the value. We don't need this space here. Alright, let's do some old stuff we're familiar with. Which year are we in? 2020, so let's check out 2020 March. Yeah, it looks the same. Let's check out 2020 October. 31st is Saturday, 1st is Thursday. That's great. And now let's check what we've done. Got March, right? And it's rendered correctly. And March gives us the opportunity to try and break the before logic. And we've got November. Let me see, it's rendered correctly. Just to be on the safe side, starts with Thursday, ends with Friday. Starts with Thursday, ends with Friday. So all perfect. That gets the drop down done. Now what about these buttons? Right now, these are, remember, links. Right now the page is reloaded, so that's definitely not a good. Oh, and one more thing that I wanted to test. If I set this to January and go to 2, that's still March. If I set this to 2018 November and this one 2020, so the two date pickers are completely independent. Right, so what's the name of these buttons? Let's just remind ourselves. It's something like go to it's this one here. Month change, go to next month. So inside our event listeners, just save it here for now and copy one of these. And what we need is, we will need to specify the date picker UID here, but we need go to next month, and the event we want to listen to is the click event. And as a first step, I'll get rid of this. And as a first step, we want to make sure that the link's default behavior, meaning redirecting doesn't come into action. So we're going event and prevent default. So now if we go on next month, the page should not be reloaded. However, if we go on the previous, the page is still being reloaded, but that's not a problem because right now we're doing the next month. And what we really need to do here is basically we're going to call a function, and we're going to call the same function on the go to previous month as well. We're just passing a different value, and we're going to call this functional method because we're going to attach it to this object. We're going to call this I'm not typing. Going to call this change month, and the value is in this case just 1. Nice. Actually, this should be first. I don't know why I entered it there, but I did. Right, and I think that's all we should do here. Now let's do the previous. I go to previous month, so we just have to type here previous event prevent default, obviously, and the value we're gonna pass in is just -1. And we're able to do this because we're using a handy method, or we will be using a handy method, handy moment.js method on the current year and month value. So let's just go and define this method here. It's called change month, and it receives a value as a parameter. And we can just say this current year and month equals to, and we're going to create a moment.js object now. We're going to create a JavaScript date object using the current year and month value, and then convert it to a moment so we have access to the correct methods. And all we need to say is just add value month. The string we're passing here, you can put here years, days, hours, seconds, minutes, but it also, if I correctly remember, it's always in plural, even if you add just 1. Right? And obviously this one won't in itself rerun the calendar. We again just need to go back to remember the logic. Oh, it's up here actually, I don't need to. Remember the logic. We reset it, and when we reset the current year and month, we need to make sure that it kind of cascades, the actions cascade down, and the calendars are re-rendered completely. So this set header year and month range, right? Let's see how this is working. Again, let's move to 2021, that is, because that's where we're gonna start as default. And let's see how this works. So, okay. So we need to check what's going wrong here. Do we have an error? Yeah. This current year and month substring is not a function. Now where do we... This current year and month substring is not a function. Where am I trying to use it as a function? That's my question. Is it here in the event listener? No. Although it says line 150. No. Okay, so somewhere I am not adding a correct value to the right. Okay, yeah. So I don't format it. The problem is that here, because I'm not formatting it, I'm redefining the current year and month as a moment object instead of just being the 7 or 8 character string that it should be. So what I need to do is just go and format, and remember what our format is: y, right? Let me see if this works now. February, yeah, remember the perfect month. January, December. Today's 18th, it's Friday, so that's perfect. And now let's go in the other direction. January, February, March. And we can't go past March, which is great. Let's try to go back. That also works. Now there's one more optimization that we can do towards the end. If you think about the month selector, the drop down, not the buttons, but the drop down. What are we doing there really? So with these months, there's no way on earth that just using this drop down without these buttons or the year button, we can change the year. We can't do it. So it's impossible. So technically, we do not need to go through the header, year and month range. We can actually completely skip it. Because what are we doing it? We can completely skip it and jump straight to the render days. Because let's just have a look inside this function what we're doing. So we're emptying the year and the month. We do not need to empty it because we do not need to re-render it. All we're doing is we're just selecting one of the existing available options. So we don't need this. What are we doing? We don't need to repopulate the years because we can't change it. We don't need to repopulate the months because they depend on the year and we can't change the year. Then what's next? Again, the option of selecting a month that's outside the range is not possible because we can only choose from what's included as default, and we don't need to programmatically highlight our options because we do it with user interaction, right? So we don't need to do all that. So we can actually, in this only leg of actions, we can actually just skip this whole step and just go for the render days. So this should all work. Let me just do a couple of tests. So let's do 2020 March. How does it render? That renders well. Let's do 2019 March. Starts Friday and ends Sunday. That's okay. Now let's stay in 2019. See, we can't change the date. And let's go to September. What do we get? Starts on a Sunday, ends on a Monday. Where's September? Starts on a Sunday, ends on a Monday. Let's check out May. Starts on a Wednesday, ends on a Friday. Starts on a Wednesday and ends on a Friday. So that seems to work well. Obviously, the case is not the same for the years because the year, because what months are available depends on the year. And obviously, this is also just a month changer, but because you're able to go from December to January, your you need to be able to pre-render the calendar if you change years. Now you could introduce some checks to check if the year has changed or not, and depending on if the year has changed, then run the set year header months and range, and only run the render days if the year is the same. That's viable. You can do that if you want to do it. It's a nice practice, but I will just leave it for now. It's we can come back to it later if you really want to optimize the app any further, but in my opinion this is just okay for now. So another side project you could also try creating another button here and here. Let's say start it with 2 arrows and set it up so that instead of 1 month it steps a year. So all you would need to do is create obviously another event listener, and you can use the same change month method and just change this to 12, right? So if you do that, you go back to 2020 March, 2020 March, how does it look? Yeah, that looks okay. 2019 March, that looks okay as well. 2018 we're defaulting to November, right? Does it look okay as well? Ends on a Friday, ends on a Friday, starts on a Thursday. That's good. If we go on further, then we get an issue. I think actually we should not allow any sort of stepping back before or after. So instead of setting it straight away, we should just create a constant saying new date, and it will be equal to the new month, new year that's been calculated. But we're going to make this conditional. So we're going to say if, and we're going to be very similar to doing something very similar that we did here. So if the start date substring, the first 7 characters, is greater than the new date, and this, and we can just copy it, this end date is smaller than, actually equal, we need equal because we need to include the month as well. That's where the date is set. So greater than, smaller than, equal. In that case, run this functionality, and not only run, because we haven't changed the current year and month, we need to change that as well. The current year and month will be equal to the new date. So this will make sure, in theory, that we're unable to step past our date range. And all we need to do is just test it out. So we're 2021 March, 2000. Hey, do we get an error here? All right, the exact opposite relation, right? Okay, so 2020 March, 2019 March, but in this case you see we're unable to go past 2019 March. So that's okay. We're not defaulting here. We could set up a logic to default here as well to, let's say, 2018 November. But again, this is something you can do if you want. I just showed you the basic version of how to create like a year skipper, if you like. And let's just check if we haven't broken anything. If we revert back to months, let me just see. So we can't go past, but we can go backwards, which is always good. Let's go all the way. Let's check out also a date if it's correct. Oh, we're in 18. Okay, let's just go 18 November. 18 November, yeah, that looks correct. Right, so everything seems to be working as it's supposed to. So that wraps the lesson. I think we covered a lot, and in the next lesson we will be adding a little bit of formatting to the dates. So basically we'll be able to select the date, and we should be making that persistent. So if we navigate away from the calendar and come back, that date should automatically shows up, the one we selected. So this is what we're going to be doing in the next lesson. Until then.